Welcome to Horse Tales and Wives Tales, a video podcast that dispels the horse tales and wives' tales common in the horse world while bringing education and knowledge to the horse owner. Your host is Chuck Potter. Chuck is a full-time farrier, an inventor of such products as the Hoof Cinch and the Lift, and an educator, taking the time to talk at clinics and gatherings on hoof care and horse health. In this episode, Chuck talks horse training and horsemanship with Madison Waldo from Pleasant Hill Horsemanship.
Hi, I'm Chuck Potter with Horse Tales and Wives Tales, and today we have Madison Waldo with us to discuss some training and training techniques and what she does and what schooling she went to. So at the end of the show we will cover a wives' tale, and it will have to do with more training equipment type things. So here we go. Hi Madison, I'm Chuck.
Hi.
And that we know each other. I take care of your horses, and I've also seen your work in stuff. And I just wanted to know, what training did you go through?
I went to school at Rochester Community and Technical College in Rochester, Minnesota for an equine science degree in riding and training. I just graduated this spring with my associate's degree. And some of the classes that I took involved Western horsemanship, which is the Western style of riding. Also, hunt seat equitation and dressage, which focuses more on the English style of riding. And there's also a colt starting class, and so that focused on actually taking a young horse and beginning the training process with it.
Okay, so in this training you guys get all levels of horses, anything from the babies all the way up to a big horse that's unruly.
Yes. There isn't so much of the super young horses. There is a repro class, and so we do get some hands-on with colts, but at the barn that our school is currently associated with, they don't generally have any of the foals, but they do have the younger horses. And yeah, anything on up. I think some of the older horses we work with are in their teens. So.
Well, what is generally a good idea for somebody to get you to the horse or the horse to you to start training?
I like to kind of play by the rule of thumb. If you are ever in a position where you feel like you are unsafe or you feel like the horse is unsafe, then you should definitely call in a trainer, because those situations can escalate so quickly and you can suddenly have a dangerous horse. You can get hurt, your horse can get hurt. It's just way better to even have a consult with a trainer to kind of see if you're on the right track.
Right, and then you can look online and you see all these things, that'll tell you, oh, in 4 to 6 hours, anybody can train a horse. You just need my magic secrets. There's no such thing.
There is no such thing, no.
Yeah.
Every single horse I work with is different. I can take two horses from similar backgrounds, maybe even the same breeding, and I can spend an afternoon with one and I can maybe get a saddle on.
Sure.
Whereas the other one, I might just be able to get a halter on.
Okay.
It totally depends on their mental stability, emotions, and just the situation in general. It's totally different with each horse.
Okay, and so when you first come up to a horse, it doesn't matter how old it is, you look for something initially as a trainer, like as a farrier. I'm looking to see if they're going to stand still for me, or if they're going to try to kick me, or if there's any problems. But for you, you're looking at them a little bit differently.
Yes, and in a way, I am looking to make sure it's not going to be dangerous, that I'm not going to get run over or kicked.
Right.
But I generally like to see how they're thinking of the situation that they're in. If they're standing tied, do they seem anxious? Are they standing okay? If they're just kind of out in the pasture, I like to see when I walk up to them, do they seem to be welcome to human presence, or have they not really been touched at all yet?
Okay.
And once I start working with them, then I generally like to make sure they're not in pain. A lot of people will come to me and they'll be like, my horse is bucking, my horse is rearing, and the immediate first thing I want to make sure is that the horse isn't in pain.
Okay.
I generally require that they get a vet check done so that we know there's nothing wrong with them.
Okay.
So yeah, that's probably the first few things I'd look for.
Okay, now a person's size and that doesn't make any difference to the horse, right? I mean, you're
Yeah.
you're small.
Yes.
And that, and somebody like me or your boyfriend and stuff, bigger guys and stuff, that doesn't play a difference to the horse, or does it?
It depends on the horse. Some horses that are more disrespectful are going to know they're bigger than you.
Mm-hmm.
But my favorite thing to bring up when people ask me this question is I have a short little 14-3 hand horse at home. She's the smallest one in the herd, always has been, and she is the boss mare. She will kick the crap out of anybody who tries to eat her hay, And I've had horses that are twice the size of her, and she still manages to be the dominant mare. And that's essentially what you as an owner of the horse, rider, trainer, whatever, have to do with the horse is assert yourself as the dominant one.
Okay.
So yeah, size definitely doesn't matter.
And then you have equipment to help you do this.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
You want to talk about some of your equipment?
Yes. The first thing that I like to point out is the main difference in there's two major sets of bits that we have. The first one is going to be called a snaffle. And a snaffle bit is basically defined as having direct pressure on the horse's mouth. So basically, if I take this and I apply 1 pound of pressure, there's going to be 1 pound of pressure in the horse's mouth.
Okay.
10 pounds of pressure, 10 pounds in the horse's mouth. And the other type of bit is called a shank bit or a leverage bit, you might hear them. And this bit is going to have the leverage, like I mentioned. So basically, if I take the reins and I pull here, if I put 1 pound of pressure, I could be putting 3 pounds of pressure.
Okay.
So then, if I'm putting 3 pounds, that's all of a sudden going to be up to 9 pounds of pressure.
So you're getting a mechanical advantage due to the design of the bit.
Exactly. So the more mild bit to start any horse in would definitely be the snaffle bit. And I actually think that any horse should be able to ride in this before moving on to the shank bit, just because they can learn how to soften. Your hands will be more gentle when you're working with this, because I know exactly how much pressure I'm putting on the horse's mouth. The other difference between the two bits, when you have a snaffle bit, if you put the bit in your hand like this, it kind of displays how it will be in the horse's mouth. Okay. If you pull back on this, you can kind of see that it's going to apply pressure to the bars of the horse's mouth, if you can imagine that that's where the bit would lay in their mouth. And it's going to apply pressure to the plate on top of their mouth.
Okay, yeah.
So that's what the direct pressure bit would do, whereas a shanked bit is going to be a little bit different. If I hold this in my hand and I pull back, this one might not cooperate with me. If I pull back on this, it's going to actually roll up.
Okay.
Instead of just putting pressure on the bars in the mouth, it's going to put pressure on the pole, which if I had a bridle connected to this, you'd see that. So it's actually going to pull down on the bridle. It's also going to put pressure on the top and down on the horse's mouth. These bits will also have a curb chain back here.
Sure.
So that will put pressure under the jaw of the horse's mouth as well.
And some of these are, one horse might respond better to one type over the other, or do they all seem to respond the same? Or?
Generally, and the way my training method is I think all horses should be able to respond softly to this one before moving on to the shanked bit. Okay. Just because there's the direct pressure and there's less going on than with that leverage bit. There's less pressure in less places.
So if you have an untrained rider or something, it's not going to hurt them. Okay.
Exactly. Yes, especially with untrained hands when you have that leverage bit. Just because, even if someone with untrained hands is like, okay, I'm just putting 3 pounds of pressure on this bit, and being light and soft, but really it still can be a lot of pressure on the horse's mouth.
Right.
So it's definitely best for an untrained horse, an untrained rider to start in this bit, because it's going to be more basic. You can get the horse to start softening to the bit. You can get the rider to start being softer with their hands before moving on to the shanked bit.
Sure.
I actually would prefer to ride all of my horses in a type of snaffle bit, just because the shanked bits can apply so much pressure, and even just one wrong move, you can put a lot of pain in your horse's mouth.
Yeah, I've seen a lot of people go with the bitless thing, on, and not a lot of people, but a few that do it. And is there any advantage there or disadvantage, or is it just a training method?
The only disadvantage to that is some horses just need to have a bit in their mouth to kind of realize, okay, I'm riding now. Whereas sometimes with the bitless, and this isn't all horses, and I'm sure with enough training they get used to it, but it's more like having a halter on, and so they might run through that just a little bit more than
I've seen that a bit.
Yeah, than just having a basic snaffle in their mouth.
Okay.
And I do ride some of my horses in Hackmores and Bozels, but I think for basic riding and working on collection and more advanced stuff, it's definitely just to have a mild snaffle in their mouth is definitely a better option.
All right, so what other equipment do you have?
I also have the one thing that I do want to mention about, the last thing I want to mention about bits is this bit. It's kind of a wives' tale that this is a snaffle bit. A lot of people buy this thinking that this is a mild shank bit to start their horses riding in shanks, and that is the farthest thing from the truth, unfortunately. This is called a tom thumb bit, and although it's got the broken mouthpiece like a snaffle bit, it still has shanks, so that does make it a shanked bit. And the reason that this bit is so much harsher is because if I pull down on the reins, this is going to kind of create a nutcracker motion.
Sure.
And it's going to, people have said that people have broken horses' jaws over it, but that's not necessarily true. But I'm sure your horse might think that's what you're doing.
Right.
So this bit is definitely a lot more painful than any other type of shanked bit and any other snaffle bit. It's definitely a bit to avoid. It is not a snaffle bit. Don't put this in your horse's mouth.
And that one too, there's a lot more going on. If you got the chain and the bridle hook, so when you do pull, not only is it there, you're getting it on the pressure on top and bottom.
Exactly. And the other bit too that is also another bad type to stay away from, this is a gag bit. This is another, you can see it's got the shanks on there.
Right.
And the reason that it makes it a gag bit is when you pull back on the reins, you can kind of see how that wants to pull back.
Right.
So eventually that can hit the back of the horse's mouth, and they're gonna kind of open up their mouth, and that's kind of why it got the term gag bit.
Right.
This is another one to stay away from because it's sending conflicting signs to the horse of put your head down, but it's also telling the horse to put its head up, and in turn you're going to end up with a horse who hates putting the bridle on. They're going to hate being ridden. Their head's going to be flying up and down, and unfortunately a lot of people, this is called the wonder bit, and a lot of people have started to use this bit in barrel racing and other speed events, and it is not a good bit for that because it's just sending so many conflicting messages to the horse.
The Hoof Cinch treats founder from a whole new angle.
It just forces that new growth along the bone, and it actually reattaches.
Unlike conventional founder treatments, the Hoof Cinch is applied to the outer hoof wall. It stabilizes the capsule and reduces pain immediately. In 12 to 16 weeks, horses can return to whatever they did before. Get the full story and watch a short video at hoofcinch.com. Don't give up on your foundered horse. Take the first step and learn about the Hoof Cinch at hoofcinch.com.
Now, another question I got to ask you before we go on is, like, I have mules and donkeys.
Yes.
And that, are mules and donkeys harder to train than horses? Is there a different technique, or,
Based on what I've done, and I really haven't done a lot of work with mules and donkeys, is that it's pretty similar. I've heard that they can be more stubborn. I haven't really come across that, but again, I don't work with a lot of mules and donkeys, so maybe that could be different. I have seen different equipment for mules and donkeys just because they have a rounder back compared to horses. They have a tight harness that just kind of keeps the saddle in place to kind of keep it from... and the croup, on the back. And that seems to keep the saddle in place so it doesn't roll. But apart from that, there doesn't seem to be a difference in bits or anything.
Okay.
So.
Yeah, I just was curious on that because that's what I own.
Yeah.
All right. Let's see, which one? You have more equipment you want to show, or something else you want to talk about in their training?
The other thing that I do want to talk about is a big importance in what you should look for when you are looking to get a trainer. Something that you should definitely take into consideration is looking at multiple trainers. You shouldn't just go to one trainer just because somebody says that they're great. You should really call around, have them come out, look at your horse, or go look at their horses that are currently in training. I think that's the greatest way to see what the trainer, what they're capable of, because you can actually see what they're doing. You can ask if you can go watch in on a session that they're working with the horse, and if they deny that, that's a pretty big sign. I would definitely keep looking around. And another important thing that I keep in my training programs is making sure that my clients have lessons. I provide weekly lessons. It's no extra charge. It's not really even
that's a good deal.
included in the training package. It's just free. where they can come out each week and they can ride their horse. And I show them everything that I've been doing that week, whether I've been desensitizing, what exercises I've been doing, and they get to practice that right there. And I think that's great because you get to see the progress that the horse is making. And if you take the horse home and all of a sudden you kind of notice they're falling into bad habits again, you know the steps to take, and you can do that yourself instead of having to send them back to the trainer again. I think that's very important.
That's definitely, especially if you have a new person, they're new to horses, they got the horse, they don't know the first thing about training. And it's like me as a farrier, I don't know how to train horses, and I don't recommend to people any training things. I say, here, call this person, to ask the questions. But if they're getting it firsthand from you as the trainer, then they can apply it when they're at home. So that's a good deal.
Exactly, yes. I think that's very important. And some trainers just do lessons at the end of the month too, and that's just fine as well. It doesn't have to be weekly, but I think that's definitely something people should look for in trainers, is those who are willing to help teach them how to ride their horse.
Yeah, that's a good deal.
Yes.
Hi, I'm Chuck Potter, inventor of the Hoof Cinch, and I'm here with my new product, the Lift. If you have a horse suffering from navicular syndrome, you know how much pain they're in. So I designed an effective, therapeutic way to end rear hoof pain.
I'm Dr. Jan Daly, and I'm excited to say that not only will the Lift eliminate the painful effects of navicular syndrome, but you can see results in as little as 15 to 30 days.
It's pain-free, cost-effective, and most importantly, it works. With the Lift, you'll see your horse rise above the pain.
The difference between starting with young horses versus horses that are already broke, my approach is kind of a little bit different with that.
Okay.
When I start with young horses, generally, like they haven't been saddled, they haven't been ridden yet, so that's going to be a lot more groundwork and gaining respect. Whereas with a broke horse, I kind of scoot through that stuff. I still start at the same spot. I'm like, okay, can this horse lunge around me? Do I have respect with them moving their hip over? Can I pick up their feet? But it's kind of rushed a little bit more until I find that point where they stop working up. And so then that's where I know my starting point is with broke horses. And essentially you can kind of do that with young horses too, because some of them have had like lunging work and stuff. But
Sure.
So. Another thing I want to mention about bits is it's very important when this fits in the horse's mouth, it's going to rest right at the edge of their lips. So when you pull on the bit, there is going to be a little bit of pressure applied. It shouldn't be enough that a regular bit with a thicker piece, such as this one, would actually damage the lip. It shouldn't be tight enough that that would happen. But wire bits such as this one, or any other thin piece, can actually cut the lip just with basic light riding. So this is another, wire bits, chains, or anything should also definitely be avoided because it can be very painful to your horse.
And one other thing too, all your training techniques are gentle in that they're not, like putting a war bridle, something like that on the horse, or the wrap, tie them up and let them back up and pull on their girth, that kind of stuff. There's none of that.
No. And I did bring one of those training aids. This is a tie down, and this essentially goes underneath the bridle. This would go behind the ears, and this would go over the nose, and then this would clip through, if you have a breast collar, it'd go through the breast collar and clip to the cinch, and this keeps the horse's head from going up. And I don't like to use any training aids apart from, the basic reins, bits, and everything, because it really just avoids a bigger problem at hand. You're just kind of hiding it. The tie down would just force the horse's head down.
Right.
There's also draw reins, which does the same thing. It forces the horse's head down, and martingales. And although it could maybe benefit the horse to maybe ride in it once or twice, it's definitely not something you should be riding in every day, because you're really just hiding other issues, whether the horse, it could be in pain, or something related to that. And it's just definitely something, if you're always having to use a training aid, you should contact a trainer for a consult or something, just to figure out if there's something behind this issue, what's going on with your horse.
Okay.
The difference of them.
Okay. And then you do have a wives' tale for us on training equipment besides the bit.
Yes,
there.
I do have a wives' tale, and it is about leg wraps. A lot of people believe that leg wraps help with internal structures of the horse's leg to keep them in place, keep them from getting injured when you're just trotting, loping around, and that is actually not true, unfortunately. They are still great for when you are riding around, if you're doing pulls, barrels, or if you're riding around in an area where there's other things in your way. It can protect from actual concussion hits to the outside of the leg. But apart from that, it really doesn't help with anything internally. So if you're riding in an arena and there's nothing really your horse could hit, they're really not doing you any good other than keeping your horse's legs hot.
Yeah, so if your horse is if he's racing or something and he overreaches and he hits himself, or if he steps across,
yes,
that's when those things are effective.
Yes, and if a horse travels where its legs move in, these would be beneficial too.
That swingward swing.
Yes, the inward swing. Yes, these would be beneficial then, even if there's no debris in the area where you're riding, just because then that concussion hit will come from their other leg as well. Yes.
And on the bottom of the screen, we will put, Madison, your contact phone number for your business, and you have a website.
Yes, I also have a website.
So
and
we'll put all that on the film there so that you guys can contact her. And this is Chuck Potter with Horse Tales and Wives Tales. And if you have any questions or comments, you can contact us through our Facebook page or through hoofcinch.com. Just go ahead and send us if you have a request for any other topics. We're going to try to do another one with training where we actually get out and have her working with a horse later on. But right now we just wanted to introduce you to her and what she does and some of the techniques that are used to train horses safely. Like I said, if you do have any questions, feel free to give us a call or contact us through the number that's on the bottom of your screen. Thank you.
To learn more about Pleasant Hill horsemanship, please contact Madison Waldo at 507-459-4952 or reach out to her on Facebook or email pleasanthillhorsemanship@gmail.com. You've been listening to Horse Tales and Wife Tales with Chuck Potter. Thanks for joining us for this episode.